Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Open Class Doodles, Tactical Doodles for Success, episode 39. Yes, already 39 episodes, and welcome everybody to the COACHMC studio. This is the place where we'll help you actors, performers, entertainers, creative heads out there to really perform at your highest levels and also to stand out in the audition room no matter where the audition takes place or what you're auditioning for. It's all about communicating your ideas in a remarkable way. And today we're going to do something that we haven't done for a while. We're going to break down entertainment, trying to figure out what could have been done better about this piece of entertainment. What are the missing plot points? What are the missing, links, if you want to call them? So is the skeleton complete? Is this good performance? Is this worth noting? And what can we learn from all this? Because in the end, it's all about learning. It's all about improving. You know me, I bash on Saturday Night Hypnosis the hell out of every bad product. But during the week, I'm trying to be the constructive, cool, and very welcoming coach. But don't upset me with bad entertainment. Otherwise, I can go nuts. So without any further ado, let's jump into today's episode and let's see what Eric, the new series that has been published out on Netflix with Benedict Cumberbatch, has to offer. And let's see what's cooking. Now, here are a couple of disclaimers, guys. I just want to make sure that everybody understands where I'm coming from, because sometimes in this crazy world that is full of noise and a lot of distractions, right, where we have very little signals and very much a lot of waves that are incoherent, people sometimes get this whole thing twisted that we're doing on YouTube, right? This is an infotainment channel. We love to educate and entertain people at the same time. And I'm myself coming from the entertainment business. I'm not someone who's outside, right, out of entertainment and performance and all that, and kind of tries and is jealous, and that's why he picks out the fights. It's about improving the culture that I've been for the last 35 years of my life in. I've worked as a fashion designer, I've worked as a musician, I've worked as a production designer, and of course also as an actor for the majority of 75-80% of my life. So first disclaimer, I've been always surrounded by people from all ethnicities and all sexual orientations and all backgrounds, everything that you can imagine. And that's actually the beauty of entertainment, of fashion, of design, and the music industry, right? Because you have to do with so much diverse people. So I grew up with all sorts of, crazy folks, crazy minds coming from completely dramatically backgrounds. I'm not shocked and I'm not, offended in my values as a human being or as a man when I see other men kissing or girls kissing or somehow, whatever type of crazy story that sometimes Hollywood can come up with. Actually, I'm always interested. I'm always interested in the hero's journey. I'm always interested in the story and the development. As a coach, I've worked on several of those projects, and I have friends and all sorts of community members that are also part of my wider array of communities that are from this business. So to me, looking at this business and its narratives, and looking at entertainment, the performances, looking at all the things that get proposed to us by the networks, by the big outlets, by the media companies, by the big companies, right? I look at it from a as neutral as possible, in terms of the standpoint. My perspective is always, coming from a coach perspective. It's like, what can we improve? How can we use this? How can we implement it? How can we improve? How can we use this? How can we implement it? This is all I'm always asking for, right? When somebody brings me in a text, an idea, something that he wants to work on, it's like, yeah, sure. Let's see if there's any room for improvement, if we can implement something crazy and interesting and kind of bring this to the next level. This is where I'm always coming from. So when I look at this, like I'm saying, on Saturday Night Hypnosis, I let myself go a little bit, and I take the whole frustration that I've accumulated throughout the week and kind of discharge it with all the other panel members, and shout out to the panel members. But when I'm over here at the COACHMC studio, even if I look at movies in a very critical way or series like today, it's just to give the creators themselves, myself, and also my community, my alumni, my students, my clients also tools, leverage, interesting viewpoints on culture, on subject matters that are important, so they for themselves and we as a community can kind of break down what could be improved, what can be implemented, what can be brought to the next level. This is what we're here for. It's just to make us all better. It's not to pick fights or kind of defend or gatekeep something. Of course, if you touch holy people like Professor Tolkien or other great stuff that has been written already in the past, where I deem it's so classical that it has its point of standing there, and then once you twist it and torture it just to make a quick buck out of it, then of course I'm gonna be a pretty rough with my consideration. Otherwise, this is always an educated conversation to have a dialogue that is creative. Anything else, I'm not really interested in. So why is it important to talk about this? I thought I'd just kind of throw this out in the beginning so people really know where I'm coming from and why I'm looking at this and what my standpoint actually is. And now let's dive right into it. I was very excited about this series. I'm telling you, I loved the layout. I didn't know anything about it. It just came out of the blue, basically. We saw it on Netflix, Alessandra and I, and we just gave it a shot. And Benedict Cumberbatch, I don't need to introduce this incredible actor to you guys. He's a master of his profession, of his craft, of his art. I admire him, especially in Sherlock Holmes. I know this maybe sound to him like, oh yeah, always the old stuff. And yeah, he has done great movies after Sherlock Holmes. And of course, he has been part of the Marvel franchise. And Infinity War is one of the best superhero movies of all time, for sure. But to me, he's still, like, I saw some theater stuff of him, and I still think that Sherlock and the theater, stuff that I saw of him, Shakespeare and all that is definitely still his best material. I don't feel like he has ever performed on that level. Imitation Game was all right. Some other movies were quite good. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed pretty much every one of his performances, but he never really touched the peaks that he, in my opinion, right, that he touched, whether that was on a theater stage or stuff that I saw for my own research, or that I saw, kind of perform, that I saw him doing while he was interpreting the incredible Sherlock Holmes. So I was really excited about a series with Benedict Cumberbatch, because I thought, and partially I was also right, based on what I saw in this 6 episodes mini-series, Eric, right? I was really excited and looking forward to seeing him perform more nuances, having more monologues, having just more stuff to say, because the way he treats words, to me, is just amazing. He's a great word handler. He's a magician with the word. And I really loved, again, Sherlock Holmes and what he did there. And it's so profoundly, it kind of, got me. So I was really, really looking forward. I was really curious what he could, pull off in a series like that. And what is this series about? Basically, it's a series in New York in the 80s, a puppeteer, a genius, you can call him, who has a very abusive behavior and is absolutely addicted to pretty much all the drugs out there, right? Has a struggling marriage, and he's very detached from home, and also from his kid that is, I think, 12 years old in the movie and the series. And no, in the series, he's 9 years old. I'm sorry. He's 9 years old. And one day, the son, after his parents fought again, right, very loudly, the whole condominium could hear them. The whole building was aware of the fact that they were always fighting. And one day, he had enough of his parents, of the shouting and the screaming and the fighting. And so he went alone to school, and then he vanished. And this is the story how the family got him back. And the premise, again, I was really looking forward to this. The premise to me sounded very solid. And I have to say, I was always, of course, touched by what these years have brought to us in terms of, let's say it, woke entertainment. There is no other way of kind of describing it. And this is what they want, also, these woke entertainers, they want us to know that this is, you know, representing them. And then of course they have this agenda, and some of the, you know, stuff that they have done sometimes worked, most of the stuff really didn't. At the box office, it flopped. And so I was of course very sensitive to, you know, looking out for any type of indication that this could be somehow woke or whatever. So yes, I had this heightened censorship, inner sensor kind of, you know, scanning, right, every frame and every second of the movie, of this series. Again, I'm sorry, but you know, in the end, that wasn't my premise. I was really just you know, happy to see something with Mr. Cumberbatch that wasn't superhero madness or anything like that. And so I thought to myself, and I also said to Alessandra, my wife, is like, hey, we're gonna watch this as neutrally as possible because this is a great actor. The premise sounds really strong. I haven't heard anything about the movie. I love the idea of the puppets. So there were like very a lot of, you know, a lot of patterns, a lot of elements, a lot of, you know, things about kind of, you know, on first sight were actually making me excited about this. And so I was, of course, very sensitive for anything that could be just, you know, remotely woke. But in the end, I was really also like, not even forcing. I was telling myself, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to enjoy this. And here's the thing. Maybe there's another disclaimer that I have to launch in before we start with the nitty gritty and kind of get to the interviews and what my conclusion is, and maybe also debating with you guys. By the way, welcome everybody to the chat. It's it's beautiful that you guys are here. It's lovely that we can finally kind of come together on a Thursday, right? 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, on Tuesday, it's 3 Sages in a Time Machine, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also on Monday, where we're looking on an open class doodles that is also happening 6 p.m. So we ramped up production a little bit. And on Saturday, you can always catch me on Saturday Night Hypnosis. I'm part of the OG panel member group, right? The inner core of 4 people that started this medicine. Well, Hypno started it, and then, you know, the 3 of us, Will, Wyatt, and Dragon Slayer, we got together. And then afterwards, it kind of spawned out to the product that we have today. So you can find me there at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And just a little disclaimer, I'm a kid that I was born in the 70s, and I grew up like, you know, I was heavily influenced, of course, by the movies of the 80s, and also rewatching the stuff from the 70s in the 80s, VHS cassettes, you know, going to the movie theater and being absolutely kind of blown away by the movies of the 80s. And the series also that we saw back then were way longer. So this whole idea that a series is so short to me is kind of strange. I have to say that whether you create a series, because in my opinion, also as an actor and as a coach, and, you know, looking at this material that we, you know, is like, when you have material that lasts for a series, then by all means, shoot a series, but shoot a real series, right? Where you have, like, I don't know, 12 episodes, 15 episodes, 18 episodes, and make them long, because the series is there to explore material. I know, in today's world, all Hollywood stars are super busy. It's very difficult to find all the scheduling and so on and so forth. Yes, it's true. And I also experienced that as a coach and as an actor myself. It's truly difficult sometimes to make all, you know, parties, you know, happy and kind of find a way of shooting the movie or shooting the series or shooting the short, right? Because people will, you know, they come from all over the place, and it's just difficult to get them all in one schedule, right? To kind of, you know, squash them in on one day and one time. I know, and that's why you probably prefer in shooting a mini series or like small series, right? But again, like, whether you're pregnant or you're not, there is not such thing as, yeah, slightly pregnant, you know, look at it, it has a 1 foot or it has 1 arm. No, I'm sorry for, you know, it's a, but you know what I mean, right? Whether you do something with full conviction, with full blast honesty, with full energy, and you really dedicate yourself to the cause. Otherwise, you know, just why do it in the first place? Yeah, because I want to do it, because such a cool project, because this and this writer is attached to it, because that actress is so excited to work with her, because that PR or that publicist or that guy or that agent, now that we're finally coming together. Okay, I see, sure, the business reason behind all that and the necessity of kind of, you know, of propelling your career forward is truly important. And sometimes you accept project that you probably also not completely, invested in artistically, but just for the sake of, kind of forwarding and propelling forward your career. Okay, I get that. But if we all act out of that intention, what we will have is a bunch of projects that are just there to kind of, reinforcing our status quo and not improving our art. And if our art doesn't improve and it stagnates, it can for maybe a decade or even 2 or even 3, but then the art will vanish, it will disappear, and finally be replaced by another art. So we have to sometimes, come to terms with ourselves and understand that there's just so much time available. So if we want to shoot a project, we shoot a project, and that's it. And we say no to other projects, instead of just ripping part and time and everything, time and space apart to kind of be on different movie sets. And by the way, this is coming from someone who did this, right? I was, there are many experiences where I was on, multiple sets, or where I was on stage and on set, sometimes in dramatically distant locations, and I had to be on, both locations during one day, during 24 hours. So I had to make sure to first be somewhere and shoot there, and then kind of hop in a car and drive somewhere else and be there as well. So I know what it is to kind of double book, triple book, and all that. And we coach also very known actors that have this type of problem. But again, I'm coming from, from the background of, first of all, being used to long series format, Lost, Breaking Bad, and all the others out there, right? Because Friends, of course, Cheers, Frasier, all this stuff. Even if there were sitcoms, I don't care. I love long format. I want to get used to my actors. I want to get used to my characters. I want to fall in love with my characters. I want to explore my characters, right? I want to identify myself with them in a good way. So all these things are beautiful in the series. But of course, if you then kind of chop the series in order to make all appointments work, in order to fit in the story, in order to fit in the location, make it as cheap as possible, then maybe, I'm just saying maybe, right? This is not criticism, just maybe, the showrunners, the production companies, and everybody else should think about just making a movie then. If everybody has such a hard time in terms of schedule of coming together for a couple of weeks or even months, so then maybe you just shoot one single movie, you make it the best you can, and then you go. And if that movie is a hit, then maybe you can come back for the second installment, even though I can't see sequels anymore, right? Earlier in the 80s, back in the days, I loved sequels because the movies were so great. I couldn't wait for a second and a third installment of Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Back to the Future. And now it's just no, the first movie is already, unfortunately, not so good, and so I don't want to see a sequel of that, right? So spare me God even a third part. So whether you shoot a series, I guess my preamble that took like 16 hours, 16 minutes to describe what I just wanted to say is this: whether you shoot a series because you're really convinced of your canon, of your material, and of your actors, or you just shoot a movie, you can do both. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. In my opinion, one of the biggest problems, it has, unfortunately, a lot of problems, this mini series. I don't even like to say it, mini series. What is a mini series? What is chocolate mini? Chocolate mini is nothing. It's for people who want to cheat on their diet. I don't want to cheat on my media diet. I want to watch a series. I want to dedicate myself to watching a movie. When I have time, finally, I've done everything. Alessandra and I finished work with thousands of other crazy actors during the week. We finally want to sit on the couch, enjoy something to eat. Yes, we do sometimes eat in front of the TV. Even that's like really, really bad behavior. As Italians, especially, it's heresy. But hey, sometimes we do even that and just watch a good product that just takes us away. And we forget about, eating and just, we're just watching. So whether you shoot a series, a real one, or a movie. This is my disclaimer. That's my personal opinion, okay? And you just let me know in the comment section what you think of this. And hey, once you're there and you already kind of write stuff that you think, here's the question for you guys. Why haven't you smashed the like button so far? This is, to me, it's like, it's a really sad moment right now. And just, why? Is it my beard? Admit it. It's my beard, right? Because Alessandra always tells me, shave the beard. You look like an old, grumpy, rusty guy. Nobody wants to give you a like if you look like this. Is it the beard? Because I look so horrible with the beard. Do you want to judge me because of my beard? Right? You are beardophobic. Just so you know it. You're beardophobic. If you're not beardophobic, prove it by smashing the like button. Oh, I got you in the woke mill right there, right? This is kind of, yes. So, seriously, smash the like button. It just helps a lot. Me, you, YouTube, everyone, right? And, I spare you the monologue. So, let's start with an interview, shall we? Is Eric a true story? It kind of feels like a true story in the beginning. And yes, the creator is Eric a true story. This is America Today online edition. Is Eric a true story? Creator weighs in on inspiration. A new Benedict Cumberbatch show chronicles the disappearance of a young boy in 1980s New York. Good. So Elena and Nicolaou, I suppose there is some Greek roots there, right? Some Greek roots. Eric is a foray into one man's imagination in New York in the 1980s. I don't have the slightest idea what this word means, and this is coming from me. I don't, and this kind of boggles me. I mean, I can't even start to continue. Foray means a sudden attack or incursion into enemy territory, especially to obtain something, a raid. Okay, so a foray is a raid. Okay, thank you, Elena, right, by using a word that I didn't know. So Eric is a raid into one man's imagination and New York in the 1980s. All right, yeah, that's a pretty decent description. I go with that. But is it central crime based on a true story? The new Netflix series stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Gaby Hoffmann as Winston and Casey Anderson, two New York City parents whose 9-year-old son Edgar, Ivan Morris Ho, goes missing after walking alone to school. The public search for their young son resurrects the missing persons case of Marlon Rochelle, a 14-year-old boy whose unresolved disappearance months prior drew little to no media attention, spotlighting the racial inequity in media coverage and policing. Okay. Now, let's go on so you get an idea of what I'm about to say. So speaking to Today.com, showrunner Abby Morgan, that's the director, producer, showrunner, she also she co-wrote something that we all know. Let me just, it was To Forget with Meryl Streep, but it was something else. Shame, directed by Steve McQueen. She co-wrote, she's the co-author of Shame, directed by Steve McQueen. That is, I think, still his best movie, 2011. And I really like that movie. It's a dark movie. It's an obsessional movie, but still a very well-made movie. So she wrote that one. So kudos to her for already making a good contribution to our media and cultural world. So Abby Morgan says that Eric isn't based on any specific event, but rather is meant to evoke a time and place, including the stranger danger panic of the 1980s. Okay. So it is based on the dark shadows of an era. So maybe you don't know that. Of course, if you're a bit younger, you can. Or the stranger danger, it was a virus, of course, right? Yeah, it's always the virus. It's always an outsider bringing in a virus that then kind of endangers the whole of humanity. And yeah, we've heard a lot about this. And so stranger danger in the 1980s. I remember when I was at school in the 80s, they would actually, City Hall would send like people from the Red Cross over to the school, informing us about HIV and and AIDS and where we can get it and what the impact would be, and that people on this planet would die in millions, they would rot, and it takes you away. It's worse than, believe it or not, this was told to us. Well, we were like 13, 14 years old. Yes, maybe younger, maybe 11, 12 years old. People told us that AIDS is heavier than the Black Plague, right? Than the plague of Spain and stuff like that. So there was like this huge, unknown, dark, very dangerous cloud coming over Europe, and devouring everybody in his path. It was really portrayed this way. I'm not kidding with you. They gave us condoms for free and all that, and we were laughing about this stuff. Some of us took it, of course, seriously, but that was the stranger danger, because it was the first time, in my opinion, then that they tried to pull this stunt, and they succeeded also. And I say pull the stunt, and I know this sounds a little bit, unpious to the people who passed away, but to me, when I now look back at history and I see all these things, all these strange events, let's place them there, because if you look at the background story of AIDS, again, we have all these red flags that we also had with the C virus. So I don't know, but stranger danger was a thing. In the 80s, it was a thing. People were coming and telling us about this new virus. And it was the first time that it was kind of this global effort was made. Also, if you look at, the history, when it really started, that these global annunciations took place, right? These global catastrophes, these global emergencies, these planet-wide, emergencies. When did this actually start? Because it started at a certain point, and then it never stopped from then. And then look who is kind of affiliated with that. And again, this is not a conspiracy theory. The people themselves who started all these agendas, who started all these, faculties that are now kind of telling us, right, when something happens. It's very interesting how that changed our perception, right? It kind of it brought us also together as a human community. So it definitely also had positive effects. Don't forget that. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's always interesting how bad stuff can definitely also trigger something positive for us, kind of overcoming that, coming together as a society, helping us out, letting us recognize again that we have compassion and humanity in our hearts. That helps us sometimes more than all the good stuff that can happen to us, as crazy as it sounds. And that's why I don't believe in this concept that we're deriving from an animal. It doesn't make sense. We're not animals, right? Even if they will always want to tell us so. And you can check us also out every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube, when it's Three Sages and a Time Machine, where we're inequitably proof that we're not animals and that we're not deriving from animals, because history shows us that we always behaved as this incredible cultural artistic civilization, that we have so many points in history, so many events, so many artifacts, so many buildings, so many examples, so many evidence that as a collective human community, wherever we have been, whatever sexual interest we were pursuing, we've been always on top of our games. We've been always creating incredible art. We've been always creating incredible manufacturers. We've been always creating incredible entertainment. It's not that now we're so much better and we're looking back and saying, oh, we were bad back then, judging our retroactively, in a completely different context placed actions retroactively with the mindset of today, which is absolutely hilarious. And they want to tell us that this is a good thing, that this will help us to come together by judging us from our own context today, back then, like from a completely different context, and telling us how we felt back then, which is absolutely nonsense. And we prove it with this show. And it means that we always had the faculty of creating incredible stuff, that there was never a time when we were animals and now we are, neocortex, human erectus sapiens, erectus, blah, blah, blah. No. We've been always like this: compassionate, fighting, noisy, crazy, creative people. Yes. Here we prove it every Tuesday. So I don't believe in this idea that once we were bad and now we're now good. And clearly, just to come back to the series, A.B. Morgan, was looking from the beginning. I felt like when I, read this interview, also it is based on the dark shadows of an era. It's an era of the mid 80s when the AIDS epidemic was hitting. There was a systematic racism with a number of institutions in New York. There was gentrification in the city happening at the same time as low-income families were struggling to find places to live. Wow. And this is where I kind of, when I read stuff like this, I kind of check out. It's unfortunately like, listen, AB, this is not politics, it's entertainment. So if we're talking about a series, a mini series that features one of the best actors in the world with a truly fascinating premise and a very cool backdrop being New York of the 80s. There's so much good stuff that you can focus on. And I'm not saying that you should gloss over reality and kind of not taking in, of course, what happened during that period of time. But let me tell you this, every time we look back and say, oh, these times were bad, poor people were living there, we're taking entitlement to judge over them. We are placing ourselves above them. That's supremacy thinking. That's racial thinking. It is you that is manifesting this type of mental attitude in the first place. It's not how people felt it back then. Of course, was there unfair treatment in the 70s and the 80s? Yes. Was there low-income families? For sure. Were there completely, in equal parts of the society? You bet there were. But does that mean that everything was dark and sinister and nefarious and there was one good and one bad side? Of course not, especially in a metropolis like New York, where from the beginning you couldn't distinguish what's good and bad. So if this is the premise of telling such a beautiful story that you want to, shed a light on dark era and systematic racism and gentrification, and you're telling the life of a puppeteer, is this coming together as a thought? Probably not. Because when I was watching the series, I had the same thoughts. Like, why are we focusing on this necessarily? Like, if you have a backdrop that is fascinating, let's say, Escape from New York, 1997, like John Carpenter, Kurt Russell, right? Lee Van Cleef, beautiful movie. So the backdrop is, of course, that New York is this Sodom and Gomorrah type of post-apocalyptic, disgrace place, Akira type, right? And so therefore the premise, the context of New York being a very dangerous place and need to kind of, extract the president out of that place, that creates the tension. But if you have a family drama where you have a puppeteer man, genius / alcoholic, very abusive father that needs to fight his demons, do you think this is the first thing that you have to mention in the article? Or because this strikes me as being, the most important thing for you. The racial, inequality, systemic gentrification and racism and all that. Which again, you are judging something that was, even from now, almost 50 years ago, from your today's mindset with the knowledge that you got fed in today, spoon-fed in today, but today's society that also takes great advantage in you saying certain things because you're pandering to a certain agenda that then, of course, provides you with the right funding for these projects. So I'm guessing there is some sort of preconceivement here that, of course, kind of it lets you to tendentially kind of believe a certain thing rather than another, even if that is completely dislocated from this core subject of your movie or the series that you want to shoot. So therefore, I already spot something that potentially could lead to damage for the product. And that's exactly how it played out. Because again, I really wanted this product to be good. Even though I don't believe in miniseries, they still, if you want to say, okay, I want a movie and they blow it up a little bit and expand it and look at the single characters a bit more granularly, all right, let's do a miniseries, but then do a miniseries, and really kind of explore all these characters and all these side strings and all these side stories and the backdrop, and really make an effort to kind of explain to me why you shot hundreds and hundreds of minutes of material that is just a contradiction to the material you have shot the day before, because this is what happens here. So the setup is good. The premise is all right. Benedict is really on top of his game. Why? Because I feel like also, being a pro that he is, he looked at the script and I definitely fought for certain things to kind of be inserted or certain things maybe to being also left out. But, you can clearly tell that he's making an effort to cover it up, right? Somehow cover it up. Whether unconsciously or subconsciously, he wants to cover up the plot holes. He wants to make sure that this thing works. Because he probably also loved it a lot. And the voice he's also lending to this puppet, it's truly interesting. So what is this? There is this puppeteer who comes up with this puppet that is called Edgar. And this Edgar is being created in order to get his son back that kind of vanished on the way to its school. And he believes in his, you know, slightly delusional mind because of the alcohol abuse and the sleep deprivation, that he believes that once he brings this character, you know, to life and on stage and being, you know, featured on this very famous morning puppet show that he runs as one of the stars, one of the showrunners, 4060 with his friend, that his son will see it somehow on TV and being kind of encouraged by Edgar appearing to kind of come back home. Because and that is brilliantly played by Benedict. He's, you know, convinced that his son vanishing is not the product of a criminal, you know, kind of, you know, asking for ransom or anything else. No, it's just his son who is not happy with this family situation anymore and just runs off in order to kind of, you know, maybe letting the parents find a resolution and finally come back into you know, a healed, a kind of a cured home, right? And he feels that this is the intention of his son and why he stays away, and therefore he wants to create this puppet. So the premise again is beautiful. Now let's dive a little bit into the critique and the nitty-gritty. Why already, you know, what's happening is this. So Benedict Cumberbatch, you know, very, you know, stressed out, it kind of doesn't realize, like, okay, that he's hurting the family. Son, you know, kind of walks away from this home and disappears and vanishes. And there's a lot of, you know, suspects, you know. Of course, you know, police is running through the records, like who could be, you know, potentially one who is affiliated to this crime. There is one of the, you know, you would say one of the janitors, one of the you know, the houseman, the handyman of the building, the janitor of the building is also accused at a certain point because he has a criminal record about that, you know, pedophilia and all that. And then there's all of a sudden this discotheque involved where, you know, a lot of gays and trans people are, and there's a lot of, you know, kind of a lot of very colorful clientele coming in and coming out, also prominent people, politicians, and a lot of cops. And so the good cop here is Michel Ledroit, I think he's pronounced in the movie, played by McKinley Belcher III. And right off the bat, we see this Philadelphia type of situation where Ledroit takes care of his dying husband, right? There's this gay couple, and the cop's husband, partner, who's way older than him, or he looks older, is dying of AIDS. And so we introduce the AIDS theme into the movie right off the bat, right? The 80s, we paint this picture where everybody was feeling kind of accused also, and yes, to a certain degree, this is also right, because this is what happened in the 80s. You know, it is sad that there was this homosexual flight attendant from Trans World Airlines. It's not a joke, Trans World Airlines. And that he kind of brought this in from Africa, of course, right? And from Frisco, then it spread it over the United States, because, of course, he was living in San Francisco. And this is how kind of this narrative kind of, you know, started in the 70s, late 70s. I think the end, it was 79, I think, when this everything started. And so we have the cop, we have the family, we have the nightclub, and we have this, you know, this relationship in the beginning. Now, the fact for me that the cop is gay per se is, of course, yeah, you want to make him gay, whatever, make him gay. But, you know, I always think it's like, what is the exact reason for making him gay in the context of the series? It doesn't change anything that whether he's gay or not. So, okay, you make him gay and he's taking care of his husband, which is beautiful, of his partner, right? That is about to die. He's very old, right? You have this type of Antonio Banderas, Tom Hanks feeling that, you know, somehow you kind of re-see Philadelphia there. And honestly, in the beginning, I was looking over to Alessandra, because it happens really in the beginning. It's like, and she was like, yeah, maybe. And I was very optimistic. I'm telling you, I wasn't judgmental right off the bat. I wasn't starting to kind of complain or anything. I didn't check out on the series at all. It's like, hey, because the premise looked to me so strong and so promising. I thought, no, they're not gonna fuck this up. They're for sure gonna include, the AIDS thing or this relationship in an interesting way. Also, because it has been said that the police officer's partner is a very famous musician. So somehow in my head, I don't know, don't ask me. Knowing that Benedict Cumberbatch's character is also an artist, I thought maybe, and runs this morning show, this kids show with these puppets. I thought, oh, maybe the musician, the cop's partner is also writing the score for the show. And so maybe there we see the police officer having this potential conflict. I'm sorry, I'm thinking as a cop. Yeah, Freud. I'm thinking as a coach and as an actor at the same time. I'm thinking already of the conflict in the future scenes while I'm watching this scene where, Michelle Ledroit, McKinley Belcher is kissing his partner, right? It's like, oh, this is cool. I immediately thought, no, this is not a red flag. This is actually... this will be used in a cool way. I was sure of that. Of course, they didn't use it in a cool way. What can I say? It's just, to me, it's also like, so you have this premise. You set up a character with suffering. You want to do that? Okay, which in my opinion is never a good idea. To set up a character, you can do it in a series. I agree. You can, because you have time to kind of revolve it, but you have even time in a movie of doing it, right? To kind of turn it around. But setting up a character as a victim is very difficult to get it out of that energetical zone. I know these are things that are happening. I know the real life sometimes looks like that. I'm just saying this is entertainment, guys. Right? Not like this interview that wants to explain to me how New York was perceived in the 80s, which basically is not true what she's saying. Because again, yes, there was the stranger danger, but it's like, it will be like Corona in 50 years. Yes, of course we all obeyed, but ding dong, we all knew at the same time, or most of us knew what was really going on. So it isn't like that. Like she's saying like, oh yes, there was this gentrification. And actually the 80s, as crazy as it sounds, right? Because it was shortly before Giuliani took over, Rudy Giuliani, famous Italo-American mayor and lawyer of New York that allegedly polished and cleaned up New York, which of course is not the whole truth. It's just a political convenient truth. But, before Rudy Giuliani, New York was a shithole. It was really a crazy town. Like Broadway was unsecure. You couldn't go there. Like even in the afternoon time, it was already pretty sketchy there, pretty edgy. Crazy, like drugs, prostitutes, all sorts of crime, right? 70s were definitely, I wouldn't say worse. It was just probably the apex, but still the beginning of the 80s in New York, talk to a New Yorker, a real New Yorker, ask him like, what were the beginning of the 80s like in New York? It was a rough time. It was a dark city, but nonetheless, it was also a city that had Studio 54. It was a city that was about to explode in terms of hip hop. There was this new culture coming out of the Bronx and Queens and Harlem that was making waves and was making rounds. It was already kind of popping up. There was Run DMC. There was this new thing, this new fashion trend. So I'm saying, yes, it was a dangerous and sketchy town. It was crazy sometimes in New York in the 80s, but it was also highly creative, super interesting, and under a certain view, you could say it was a town that was about kind of to thrive and blossom up again, and people could feel it. So it wasn't all that bad. And if this is the premise of the movie, again, to picture everything bad, to picture the main character as a victim, right? Because you make him a victim. If you immediately, you see a character in a couple of seconds, a couple of scenes afterwards, introducing him, you see him taking care of a dying man. And of course, you're there giving him the pills. It kind of drains the energy. It's a bummer. It pictures the main character as a victim. So here, the black guy, because it is a black guy, the detective is immediately as a victim. And I don't understand why, to be honest. It doesn't make any sense in the further context of the movie. And this is why I criticized this choice. It doesn't add anything substantial. Not one discussion, not one dialogue, not one comment that out of the gay perspective could add something to the straight perspective to kind of make people understand. No, actually he behaved straight throughout the movie. He just at home had this dying guy, right? And by the way, that didn't, hold him back of kissing other ladies and making out, with other ladies while his partner that was so beloved and was about to die from the stranger danger, virus, right? That didn't, hold him back and stop him from kissing and making out with other ladies in the car. So also here, I don't know. It's like, so I'm asking this question as a writer, as a coach. I don't care for politics per se. It's just so. What's the point of telling him as a victim, as gay, and being kind of tucked in this very strange and complicated situation? So when you have a so-called anomaly, right, like a plot anomaly like this in the beginning, so whether you exploit it, because it's actually great, it's actually in the silver platter, then exploit it. Like, what is the difficulty of him being gay? Like, does it mean that he has to hide at work? Does he have to kind of, do all sorts of, stunts, kind of, show up with a ring and a girl? Does he have to pay someone in order to pretend that he's straight in front of the precinct because the tough, cops don't want him to seem weak, right? Again, when I saw this in the beginning, I thought, oh, maybe could be cool. Maybe the artist, right, the musician who is about to die is in reality one of the score writers for the show. And there is a huge, like, not huge, but there is a conflict of interest for the cop itself. Or maybe we want to tell, what the difficulties are to be a gay cop in the early 80s in New York City, which definitely is probably not an easy thing. So again, the choice itself the premise is good, but what you did out of it is absolutely like, yeah. So, and now it was just used. He was just used and put into this position to kind of exploit and make money out of it. So it seems, because it's loveless, it's passionless, it's without any sense. There is no implication, no explanation, no hero's journey, no redemption, no conclusion to him being gay and being, part of this very, suffering relationship with someone who just got sick. Maybe they, I thought maybe they're discovering AIDS now and there's some link to it. It's like, why you open up such a can of worm if then why you create the string, you place it, you stitch it, or you hook it, or you glue it to a puppet, and then you don't have the puppeteer who moves the puppet. That's why the title of this video today is Many Strings, but Not Enough Puppeteers. Welcome to Everything Checks Out in the End. And hey, since you're here, why don't you, just saying, you could also subscribe. Just saying. All right? No, but you know what I mean, hopefully. Let me know, Chad. Maybe it's me, but it's just like, okay, so you have this now, and then you're not using it. So it's an anomaly, but without exploring the anomaly, it becomes like an agenda. So unless it's just there for quotas, which would be racist, in my opinion. If this is just for quotas reason, oh, let's put the black man who's gay just at the beginning of the movie, so we get the black gay community. Well, that's, represent the black guy like this. Isn't that racist? Or isn't that like for exploitation? Because if there is no real storytelling behind it, it kind of looks it is, right? Don't get me afterwards by saying, yeah, it was so brave and so considerate of us as a production to put him there. Yep. You just exploited him. You haven't explained the story. There is no resolution to the character. There is no hero's journey. We don't understand where he's coming from, why he made this choice in his first place, or anything for that matter. And now you're telling me you made a brave decision? No. You just put someone in there that kind of represents a stereotype that you want to kind of check out, from your box, that is kind of serving your agenda and not the storytelling process, because this is proof that it's not, right? So again, politics don't have anything to do with entertainment. If you have politics, do politics. If you have entertainment, do entertainment. Otherwise, people will criticize you for that, right? They're doing it every day. So what is your agenda here? Is it to entertain us or to give us some sort of stereotype agenda box that you want to check out? And again, I was in the beginning, okay, all right, let's look over this. And I saw Priscilla, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. I saw Casual Fall, the original version, and also Birdcage with Robin Williams and Gene Hackman. I don't know. To me, there is no problem with entertainment. It doesn't matter where it comes from. This is the point that I'm making, right? My Pride Idaho, Brokeback Mountain. You know, it doesn't matter if there are two men kissing or two girls or a man and a girl, right? If the story checks out, to me, everything is fine. If there is conclusion, resolution, and a hero's journey, and great entertainment, wit in the dialogue, cool background, and interesting additions to the topics, to me, it's no problem. I will watch this forever. But if you present something from the beginning that then doesn't find its honest and authentic resolution in the development of the story, then to me, this is clearly, you know, sloppy work, lazy work, and at best. At worst, it's just agenda driven. Hey, Coach. Winzinger, a.k.a. El Otaku, a.k.a. the Wee Pillar. Hey, Coach, have you heard about Gavin McKinney saying enemy is for P-words? Yes, I heard about it. Yeah, we'll definitely also discuss it on Saturday. But what's your take on it? Let me know. Yes, I heard of it. It's, you know, what can I say? It's funny. They are weaponizing the discussion instead of weaponizing the story. Like, they're looking for every crack in the wall in order to insert something that doesn't belong to the wall. And then they complain that people are pointing out exactly that detail. Because if you have a wall that pretty much looks the same and you have details in the cracks that don't make sense in the context of the wall, of course, what do you expect from people? This is how we have been taught. This is neurochemically how we are wired. And this is the problem that I have with agenda-driven movies. They're trying to rewire us. Because this is, I feel like in the end, like, I thought about this many times. Why is the cop bisexual? Because he isn't completely gay, right? He's making out with the lady as soon as he had the chance, and he's a bit tipsy from the wine he had before. So, right, that's about, you know, so he wants, the showrunner wants this character in there in order to kind of retroactively justify the history of it. I guess it's really weird, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So Vinziger says, I heard about it all. I can say I'm not surprised about how anti-entertainment and anti-culture he is, and it makes me wonder if he's one of them. It could be, yes, because in the end you see entertainment. Yes. I mean, entertainment in the end, Winzinger, you have, why are we fighting so over games and movies and interpretations of Tolkien, right? We could say, hey, what the hell? This world is open. Do what you want. And, you know, everybody can have fun and can kind of, you know, experiment stuff, and sure, why not? But it's the fact that every artist, like, I get sometimes paid after years when some of my art is shown again, because there is a certain identity, right, that is built in my work, and that identity is linked to my face, and that is the canon that I represent. And so therefore we have those, you know, these reoccurring payments that we sometimes receive. Sometimes they're pretty, you know, substantial. Sometimes they're rather small, and but it's just a reminder that every time my face has been shown again in the context of the character that I was impersonating, that I have linked my identity with, every time that happens, I get a little fee out of this. And this will occur as long as I'm alive. So my identity as an artist will pay me for the stuff that I have created in the past, because that is linked to my work. Now, there is no right on planet Earth, as bizarre as it sounds, that someone could go ahead and take my past entertainment and twist it and change it and manipulate it. So why should it be done with authors, with canon, with stories, with folklore, with myths? It's the same thing. It shouldn't be allowed, in my opinion. Even covers for songs. I think there should be like a limit how many times a song can be covered. I'm serious. Because by doing that, you're confusing people. Entertainment is there to reassure them. You see where the difference is. My identity stays the same. throughout the process of time. And even if I'm not here anymore, my legacy continues, hopefully, to kind of, reverberate in a little echo chamber, and some people can still identify with it. That's why we have three sages in the time machine and stories about ancient aliens and all this stuff. And it's still fascinating to us to look into the past, because the identities from the past can talk to us. They give us understanding, entertainment. So you enter something that gives you support and that is recognizable. If you confuse people, you strip away everything that is, if you strip away, you break down the columns of that entertainment, people are getting confused about the fact why they should laugh or why they should call this entertainment. So it becomes an intellectual discussion. Oh, I like this, or I didn't like this because of this and that. It's not anymore, oh, I loved it, or this was great, or I hated it because of that and that reason. There is no honest discussion anymore because you took away the identity. So funny enough, they call it identity politics, but it's actually there to erase identity and to place everything in conformity of a faceless collective. That's why entertainment, gaming, culture, books, folklore, myths are so important and shouldn't be touched by any means. Leave them like they are. Leave them like they are. Let people judge. There is no superintendent that is smarter, greater, bigger, that should have the allowance to retroactively change, manipulate, confound stories, canons, and lores. It's absolutely wrong. To me, this is a crime. I know why entertainment is art and art is culture. If art gets poisoned or becomes poison, the culture gets poisoned and becomes a poison for society. Exactly. It's why we, quote unquote, fight for good entertainment, because it kind of makes us understand who we are. If we are confounded about the filter that we apply to our understanding of reality, we will never have that experience. And therefore, we are easier to manipulate. We get sick very quicker, and all these other things that come automatically with it. So I wonder. Another thing that I absolutely disliked about the show, and this is on, where in the beginning, my point about the detective, it still could be reasoned that, hey, it doesn't really matter. There is a mathematical, chance that there were also some black gay cops in the early 80s in New York, for sure. And he's just there, right? It doesn't need to be explained, even though you kind of wasted potential storytelling material. But okay, if you want to leave him there just for the sake of it, just because he was the best at the audition, all that stuff, fine. That is a choice that develops, right? And so I could be even okay with it. And again, to me, that wasn't even a red flag. But what was made by design, what isn't a coincidence, is the fact that all white people are evil in this miniseries. All white people are evil in this miniseries. All of them. The wife, Gaby Hoffman, who was made uglier in the show that she actually is in real life, right? She's evil, right? She cheats on him in their own house. She is even pregnant of the food truck owner, and the way also she treats her husband. Of course, yes, yeah, he could be an abusive guy, blah 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 blah. But the way she treats him is like, there is no comprehension, no whatsoever. We're telling a story of someone who's already fed up, which again is not a very clever character choice, in my opinion. As a screenplay right connoisseur, I have over 1,800 acting credits on stage and in front of the camera. So yes, I may know a couple of things about screenplays, about how they work, about the dynamics of a screenplay. So establishing a character as a victim in the beginning is never a good choice unless you have a truly great revolution in mind and a storyline that kind of, propels us in a complete different direction. Then fine. Otherwise, it's nonsense, and it makes the story heavier, draggier, and less easier to digest, and therefore also to kind of progress mentally. Second of all, if you have someone who is inherently evil all the time and doesn't explain where it's coming from, and you just take it as a given fact that person needs to hate the other person, you cut yourself off from the story development of that character and of his narration arc and also of his redemption. So that's not a very clever choice as well. The Chuck Rosette channel, welcome to our hangout today. Yes, Netflix is garbage. Well, it's not itself Netflix, right? It's the agents that run Netflix, right? Netflix, we have also some good entertainment on Netflix. Of course, it has become fewer and fewer. The program is shorter and shorter, more and more expensive, and it's definitely it never hit the illustrious points it once had, like in terms of creative oscillations. But it's just, yeah, of course, if you have an agenda that kind of occupies the whole script department, and therefore everything needs to kind of go through that filter, yeah, chances are your stories won't be great. And this is exactly what we're witnessing right now. I'm really happy with this because I'm a colleague of these people, right? I'm an actor myself. I would love to see the industry thriving. I don't have anything against per se, besides Kathleen Kennedy and some of the Rings of Power showrunners. I don't really necessarily have any against these people, even though they're the agenda that sometimes they're unconsciously kind of defending is inherently evil, but still, they are human beings trying to make it, and there can be deceived, manipulated, and kind of, lured like everyone else of us, right? No one is safe from this. So that's why I don't feel like giving the judgment, a preemptive judgment, is the right thing to do, because everyone, who is sometimes in a bad situation might shake with his values when you offer him a big paycheck, but in order to kind of renounce his core values, right? I want to see how many people out of this illustrious community that we have today would do the same thing and say no, same thing like I did. But many people fall for that, and that's also okay. But in the end, again, my interest is for the culture, because the culture is the healing potion. That's the medicine that we can use. And if our culture gets indoctrinated by evil forces, of course, we have to cleanse it. So this is Gaby Hoffmann. She's clearly not an ugly lady, right? Actually, she has charm. She has a very interesting and appealing, but in this series, she's really ugly. She looks like a man in this series, right? It's and she has no character comprehension for her husband whatsoever. She has no fault, no evil. She's absolutely fantastic. It's all the white guy's fault, right? But again, all white people, even her character, Mr. Anderson's wife, is evil, right? All white guys, all white people in this movie are evil. The public prosecutor, the cops, everyone who's white in this production, the homeless lady that wants to sell the kid to the perverts, just evil. That's something that was made by design, and I don't see any necessity for it. I find it stupid. I find it pretty disgusting, unnecessary, and absolutely unentertaining. Right? That's the whole. It kind of defeats the purpose. Like, okay, so everyone is evil. Everybody's gay in the series, apparently. Besides the main character, everyone is gay. Like, also another thing is like, okay, so all white people are evil, and everybody besides the main character, because I think Benedict kind of maybe he defended himself for getting portrayed as a gay man as well, and kind of changed the script. I'm just speculating. This is just rumors. Nothing is the fact here, but it's just a little bit too much. It's a little bit too on the nose, and it's also slightly ridiculous. That's definitely one of the the major red flags also, and kind of. But even that, I could get it. I didn't think The Last Batman was a great movie. It was an okay movie. But it was a decent movie. It was okay entertainment. Besides, of course, what was it? What that Zoe, Lenny Kravitz's daughter said. Zoe Kravitz said, like, white supremacy or something like that. But every character there is also like, every good character is black in the Batman, right? And every evil character is white. It's okay, but I still can, as a total, I still can enjoy the movie. So to me, that is not necessarily like a problem. If you want to paint all white people evil, okay, whatever, go ahead, paint them all evil, but make the story work. There is in the beginning of the series this, like the first 20 minutes, I believe 15 minutes, there is interaction between Benedict Cumberbatch and the kid, and they're both at the studio kind of creating these puppets. And again, I was thinking, wow, this is good. This is good. Maybe the kid wants to explain his suffering through the puppet. Maybe, the puppets could, at a certain point, kind of, being the representatives of the puppeteers and kind of, you know, speak out, you know, some truths that they were never allowed to speak out as human beings, as private beings, right? So the puppet could somehow facilitate the communication between father and son, right? And this could be one of the driving things, that they say the things that they're not allowed to say as kids through the puppets. Nope. No way. It was beautiful. Beginning was nice. I thought, hey, this is cool. This could go somewhere. Again, this was a string that was never picked up. LeDroit, being this gay cop, is a string that it just exists. It never got picked up, never explained. Why white people are all evil is a string, just got picked up, never explained. The kid itself has his talent clearly from the father. He's very artistic. He's an artist as well, slightly autistic and an artist as well. He kind of reminds me of myself when I was little. I was similar to this kid. And of course, there's a strong connection there because it's the father who's clearly the creative mind, and the family is drawing, designing, creating all these funny puppets, making these noises, impersonating these voices, great stuff. And so I thought, oh, maybe there is a string, right? So the son in the end could also realize, like, hey, the stuff that I'm really great at, the stuff that is really fun for me, the stuff where I can finally explain my world, I have it from my dad. I can be also proud of my dad. My dad is not just an evil guy. And maybe that could have helped the kid in the process of this mini series. I'm slightly pregnant, whatever mini series means, right? Or slightly longer movie than necessary. We can call a mini series also like that. That could have been something great, right? For the kid to recognize, hey, yes, my father he's addicted to alcohol. He's an abusive character. He doesn't beat me or anything. He doesn't beat the kid. I think that was also eliminated by Benedict Cumberbatch, if you ask me. I think the original draft kind of had that he was also beating his child. But then I think that was Benedict kind of, because it's all so constructed that you feel like, yes, of course. You know, I wouldn't have been surprised if that was the original draft. But that could have been some way to kind of find the redemption, the talent, the art, the creativity that he clearly has from his father. So there is definitely a huge, beautiful, and positive thing that both connects them. No way. We don't pick up the positive. In this series, everything that is positive, beautiful, generous, optimistic gets completely left out of the picture. So the kid is super, super talented, is this great artist, and kind of runs away from his father. And it will, you know, it explains it, but it never actually explains why, right? It's like yes and also no, really. But okay, I still could go along. I still could, if you kind of deliver like a solid detective story. So when I saw these first minutes like crossing by and seeing all these strings not being picked up, right, and seeing also a couple of minor red flags, I was really trying to enjoy this, believe me, guys. I still thought, like, hey, the detective story in itself has potential. The kid seems to be a cool actor. That really didn't age that well, that thought to myself, I'm sorry to say. And Benedict is, of course, a guarantee. So that, you know, it will make sense. In the end, all will make sense. And I'm telling you guys, till the 5th episode, it somehow did. It was shaky. It was getting cringier and cringier. And plot holes becoming bigger and bigger, like black holes that don't exist. By the way, guys, black holes, I'm sorry to tell you. I know these NASA pictures look funny, but first of all, they're not pictures. They're rendering. They're getting data that are wavelengths that get translated to something that we know. So an artist sits there with a computer engineer and a coder and thinks about, hey, this gamma ray length corresponds to red color on planet Earth, hypothetically said. And this is how they painted it. And then they tell us this is a photograph. It's not a photograph. You can't photograph. You can't take pictures of something that eats light, that doesn't allow light to escape. Ding dong. Wake up, guys. There are no black holes. Just a side note. But there are many plot holes, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger over, you know, the course of the I'm Not So Pregnant series. And this is also a problem. It just shows that, you know, in the beginning, maybe you had a strong synopsis. Maybe Netflix told you, hey, blow this up. We want to make this a miniseries, maybe expand this. And I don't want to judge, you know, the showrunner per se, but she ultimately kind of carries the responsibility. And yes, the plot holes are just incredible at a certain point where you feel like, all right, we left realism, right? But then also what was driving me, kind of forward and still insisting and believing that this could be a decent product was also the fact that there all of a sudden this puppet showed up, Edgar, the puppet that the father was working on in order to kind of, get his son back, because he was convinced of the fact that the son was watching TV all the time, and then he would actually see Edgar, the puppet that they were both working on, and through seeing the puppet, his son would be convinced that the father is a good guy and would come back home. And so therefore, all of a sudden, this puppet, comes to life and is just visible for Benedict Cumberbatch and represents his darker perspective, right? His shadow perspective, his shadow soul, or you want to call it. And that, again, good premise. Interesting. Okay, nothing completely new, right? We had, I think it was, what was the show with the unicorn flying around? Was it Happy? I think it was Happy, right? Where all of a sudden, right, one of our vices becomes an animal. That was a nice premise. So all these things were kind of making some sort of entertainment, creating some sort of interest. And so therefore I thought, hey, maybe this could go into the right direction. So the result is that, of course, the sun disappeared ultimately in the sewers. And this darker perspective of the main character, of Mr. Anderson being this monster, and he also explains he comes from down, he comes from the underground, he comes from beneath the surface, right? So already we had this idea of sewer canalization system and tunnel system, right? He was already talking about it, and so to me it was clear, all right, this is also going down, this is also going into the underground. And one of the major plot lines, one of the major plot islands consisted in this discotheque called Lux, of course, Lux, which is light, which is Lucifer, bada boom. So it's the devil. And this, this very dark, place where you have to kind of, also go down the stairs, and you have this place where there are all sorts of sexual, perversions, all of behavior going on. Of course, he was kind of, the murder case, or the disappearance case was also leading down there. So we were always going down, whether it was into the tunnel system, sewer system, into this discotheque. It was all underground. And so that was a nice motive. I really liked that. I feel like she was onto something very interesting there. So the puppet being the shadow self, the subconscious, the suppressed, vice self with the abusive behavior, the whole case, the whole detective case having a lot to do with the tunnel systems, with dark, sewage system of New York, and also this underground discotheque. So that was actually very cool, bringing all these motives together. And I thought, hey, somehow they're also all connected. And again, these were good strings in the beginning, but then how they resolved it, guys, I don't want to go in all the details, but just believe me, it's just, the premise was very strong, but the resolution of all these various plot islands, it was just ridiculous. It was just not good. It was just not good. Also, the behavior of the detective didn't make any sense. So the disappearance of the main characters, of the kid, right, is linked to this discotheque where another kid has disappeared, Marlon La Rochelle, and we see his mother also being at the 27th precinct all the time, waiting for a response for her kid that is missing now for 11 months. He was a great basketball player, promising kid that kind of disappeared in the same environment where with the people that are frequenting this discotheque. And so again, the detective was going there, and of course he went there before I guess he became a detective, and he knew the club owner from his wild days, in the 70s, I guess, free love and whatever. It gets just hinted at. They never tell the story. You just assume all this, right? And there is this club owner who once was a really bad guy, who is now just sort of a bad guy. And then we have this very weak constructed side crime story with one of the, one of the handlers of this discotheque owner, who's also like like a dealer, and who also has like this agenda where all politicians are in, and he's also a sex trafficking guy, but he's way too young. And all of a sudden you feel like, guys, you just picked up too many strings, or the other way around. You just threw too many plot balls into the air, and they all keep falling down. Are you Robert from Sturm der Liebe, Randall Finex? Thank you for being here. I don't know why I'm doing a robotic voice. Yes. No, yes. I'm an actor who used to play this character. Let me say it that way. Yes. And all of a sudden, it doesn't make sense anymore. Just too many plot balls flying through the air. And all these connections that the detective now finds his ex-lover, who's also involved with this discotheque, and the disappearance of his kid, and somehow he's a bad guy who doesn't know about the sex trafficking, though. That is all managed by a 14-year-old boy. Sure. Then is linked to the public prosecutor of the town, a white guy with Italian, heritage, and that never gets explained, right? When the public prosecutor, who's also linked to the murder case of Marlon La Rochelle, who was one of the, male prostitutes of this public prosecutor, who kind of apologized for, kind of taking advantage sexually of this kid by saying that he could never tell anyone that he's gay, and that was, his way of compensating that. It's just, wow. And yes, and by episode 5, it is actually where also Alessandra and I looked at each other. It's like, hey, okay, I like your role there. Have a good evening. Thank you, Randall. Thank you so much. That's I'm really glad you like the role. Thank you. Have a good evening as well. But if you're here already, if you asked 2 questions, I answered you 2 times. Don't forget to do this, right? Okay, that's very nice. Thank you. Smash the like button since you're here. Yeah, you have the feeling that you have a lot of strings, but not enough puppets, not enough puppeteers. That the whole story doesn't really check out. It's, of course, an incredible coincidence that the sewer system is right beneath the club where everything happens, where this bad guy is that kind of helps sex trafficking. But you never go into that direction. We never, we never tell this pedo story. We never know what the real backgrounds are. They're somehow linked to, of course, Russian trash, removers. Of course, it's the Russians and the Italians, right? There is never someone else involved with this. No. Here, the whites are, well chosen. Yes, thank you. I follow your too. Thank you, Randall. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Yes, and again, I'm not saying this out of just to criticize the movie. Again, I feel like when I'm saying you have strong premises and good strings or good puppets, why don't you use them? So again, this is, I think, the problem they had maybe in the beginning. I want to at least kind of give you kind of the shadow of a doubt here, the benefit of the doubt that maybe it was just too many themes, too many things to pick up for a mini series. Maybe this should have been like a proper series or one condensed movie where you kind of, touch upon all these topics in a cool way and find not just to denounce, but to find the storyline, because I feel this is what most of the time happened, that it was more denouncing than actually showing or telling a great story. A couple of things also. The kid disappears in the underground because he's following a graffiti tagger that was somehow famous in New York. And that graffiti tagger, a black guy, of course, is a good guy and has like a shelter built in the underground next to subway station, I think 59th Street or something like that. And of course, there are hundreds of other homeless people that are just sitting around the shelter. They could just storm the shelter and kick the guy out and just, take possession of it, but they don't. They just accept to live outside there in the raw tunnel systems. Why is there just one shelter? It looks a little bit, the whole underground setup reminded me a little bit of Demolition Man and its goofiness. It wasn't really, it was serious, but then it was a bit also stereotypical, I guess. It's like, yeah, of course. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Demolition Man and also of Luc Besson's Underground a little bit. So the kid goes down there, like following this famous graffiti tagger because he wants to flee from his abusive father, who never, did anything to him but words. Of course, the graffiti tagger tells him, does your father beat you? And he's like, no, but words. Yeah, words can sometimes be as hurtful as the beating. Oh, of course. Yes, sure. Of course, words can be also very painful. So now we are giving all sorts of kids reasons to just break out of home because they're hearing a bad word. Now we want to judge everyone's character by any single thing that they say throughout the day, as if people are not stressed, as if people are not feeling the pressure, as if like a white male in the early 80s who has to work as a puppeteer, make ends meet, feed a family, be there as a father, and withstanding all the pressure and all the executives that want to fuck him up and kind of fire him and take advantage of his intellectual property and take advantage of. That's all good. That is all right. That is fair. That's just capitalism. But as soon as he says something wrong to his kid, it's the same as beating the kid. Again, the moral resolution here is absolutely ludicrous. Only someone from a highly privileged, completely delusional family who has lost touch with reality, with how people actually live and how they come by their things, can write something like this, right? And these are little things that are very poisonous to the movie, and they are all over the place. They are not only poisonous to the movie; they're just poisoning to the ambience that you feel is like, why is she saying that? Of course, the kid is also writing, be good, be kind, be different, be unique, which, some sort of a slogan that we hear during Pride Month. This is also very kind of, it kind of is coming from that echo, from that thing. So that the kid is writing LGBTQ, propaganda, claims onto the wall is also another thing. But the other plot hole that I found really interesting is once the kid is down there in this self-built shelter that never gets attacked by anyone kind of surrounding this, right? But gets completely respected because he's the good graffiti tagger, the guy who built it. I don't know. I didn't know that, between homeless people, that there is such a loyalty in the homeless community that the people respect and love each other down there so much, right? Never take advantage of each other. No. So, besides that, this kid is down there and doesn't say a word. He just sleeps and draws. But it's not like an introspection in terms of, okay, I see this kitten in his world and kind of escaping from this. Because I might assume that for a kid, being in this Demolition Man post-apocalyptic type of underground world where everybody is whether sick, drug addicted, a criminal or pervert, that it might, kind of, I don't know, intimidate him a little bit, maybe make him feel slightly insecure or just unsafe. And having also like a roommate, like the girl that is always hanging out with the graffiti tagger, God knows why they're both hanging out with each other or are friends with each other. It doesn't make any sense. She's definitely like, she looks like she's a hobgoblin from Moria. Like, look at her face. It's like, okay, this is a white girl. It's completely disfigured. She has this huge scar. She looks like an orc. She looks like a goblin. And so this kid is never the slightest, troubled, concerned, or preoccupied about the slightly dangerous environment he's in, right? It's like, this is like common ground for him. Like, he's usually hanging around with dangerous drug addicts and homeless people that are, ready to sell your soul for $5. No, it doesn't matter. So the kid just lays there throughout the series, doesn't do anything. I thought, hey, there may be some good conversations that could also spawn off, from this graffiti tagger that lives a wild lifestyle that is slightly illegal, that is dedicated to art. And this kid that wants to become like him. And maybe the artist tells him, hey, you know, it's not easy to be in homeless, and it's not something that I wish. It was like your parents don't want. No. He just, of course, fuels into the anger of the kid. But then in the end, the kid doesn't really play this. There's no chance of acting this out. He just lays there most of the time. His back is turned to the audience, so we don't even see his face. Seriously, we don't see even the kid's face, and everything seems fine. You know, with the kid, you think like, where is the problem here? It's like, why should he go up anyways? It's like he feels completely fine. There is no problem. Nobody is, intimidating, and nobody is threatening him. Nobody is. So it's his new friends, right? We don't see also any other parents or any other people involved in this story of their family. It's really crazy how they kind of place this kid down there, and kind of the metaphor, of course, it's the kid that lives in darkness, the inner child of all of us that is surrounded by, the danger. And okay, I get the metaphor, but hey, I get the metaphor after 15 seconds. Now, do you want to tell me a story, or is this going to continue? And this is what they do. They continuously, like throughout the series, they place this kid there. He has a couple of dialogues that are really not good. He's also not acting that well in those scenes, because I feel like the kid, and legitimately so, I would be surprised if this kid would act out greatly in the circumstance, because it doesn't make sense, right? So the kid, I think, was just confused, and instead they chose them to turn him just around, show his back, and leave it up to dad, and shoot these scenes like this most of the time, because I think the kid had really like problems acting this out. Like for an adult actor, kind of separating the nonsense that you're playing from your job description and still playing a character that is reacting more or less authentically and generally to the circumstances, even if they're bizarre, is less challenging as for a kid who needs like the direct feedback, right? Who needs a story that is not so convoluted intellectually and doesn't make really sense on a reality-based level. Ryan Roger Ethe, word up. But it's just the way is like you always compare it to your situation, especially when you're a kid. And when nothing like that is comparable to your situation, it becomes really hard to act, right? And there is no way to get there unless you have, of course, great actors. Like famously, Kramer versus Kramer, Dustin Hoffman, the relationship he had with this actor when they were talking in lunch breaks. And Dustin Hoffman, talks about this in full length also in his masterclass. I highly recommend you to check that out, by the way. It's a great masterclass. It's really worth the money. Great stuff that he kind of, releases there for us performance entertainers. It's like when you don't have actors that help you, and in the way, Dustin Hoffman helped out the little kid while he was shooting Kramer versus Kramer, because of course the kid had sometimes problems in realizing the importance of certain dialogues, right? And so Dustin Hoffman was making an effort to kind of explain everything to him. And this is why these scenes turned out to be so great in Kramer versus Kramer. Here, you don't have that, and you clearly see the scenes don't work because, of course, the one actor maybe couldn't even explain it in words or didn't want to, take the time out of his schedule to do so, and the other kid was kind of left, and the kid was a bit left alone, even though I'm sure he had some coaches on set or anything, but it doesn't really translate. And so these scenes down there in the underground, they don't really make sense in my opinion, and there are also, again, a lot of plot holes. There was a thing about the monster that Benedict Cumberbatch keeps seeing, the monster that he's also working on. And there are, in the beginning, some interesting dialogues going back and forth that, of course, the monster represents his bad conscience, or all his vices, his bad, temperaments, all the elements that are rotten about him. Even though, again, this is not a wise choice to portray a character just as a demon, as, if you really want to, kind of bond with this character, except when you are a demon, I guess, or Satan himself, then okay, then you can bond with him. But again, like for regular folks like us who work, right, sleep, eat, right, and do all these things, and then once in a while go to a movie theater or sit on their couch while they're enjoying a couple of minutes of hopefully good escapism to relax from the week, and then have to kind of see all these strange plot lines that don't really kind of connect with each other. And again, like the monster itself, also nicely interpreted with his voice. He's really, like Benedict Cumberbatch, of course, lent to the vices, to his bad temperaments, also his voice. Again, this is okay, but he's just he's just a bad person. He's just an evil person, like all white people, right? Almost all black people are great. I think all black people in this movie are just good people. All white people are just evil people, women, men alike. And the Latinos are somewhere in between. It's true, right? This is like literally what you can see. Like, convince yourself. But the thing that I was trying to kind of make sense of is, so you have the father that is this toxic person, okay. And through the discussions he has with his bad conscience that is now personified with this puppet monster that he also likes to create as a real puppet, as a real monster for the show, for Daddy Sunshine, I think it is, or Morning Sunshine, or Good Day Sunshine. Yeah, that was the name of the show for this kids show. That I could have been interested if the puppet was kind of talking psychologically to Benedict Cumberbatch and kind of helping him. Also, it's similar a little bit to what we see in Venom, right, with Tom Hardy and this symbiote, right? Some of that stuff could have happened, like a bit more funny dialogues, a little bit more, also a bit more of a light line. No, this monster is always attacking Benedict Cumberbatch, is always repeating the same thing. And I get it. Yes, he's a toxic white male. It's all his fault. It's not his mother's fault. No, by no chance. It's all his father's fault. All are blaming him as if there is no mother, right? That's, to me, it's wow, sensational stuff. Very good work. Compliments. Like, yeah, of course. A partnership is based just on one factor. It's just on one column. No wonder he breaks, because maybe that's too much weight, because the mother never gets accused of having neglected her, the priority of taking care of the kid. Of course, it's always the father who gets blamed. That the mother receives like a lover that he cheats on in the same apartment they live in and then gets pregnant. Oh, no problem. Go ahead, girl. Have fun. But the father, hey, he said a bad word. Oh yeah, he's guilty of everything. The public prosecutor who kind of animates a sex trafficking ring with kids, with minors. It's almost like, oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, it happens. So what, right? But hey, Benedict Cumberbatch, the white guy who kind of talked loud to his son, Hitler, right? Stalin, right? Mao Zedong, bad guy. It's like, okay, this is really weird. So again, like the balance of values and how they get perceived is completely mixed up, in my opinion. There are some things that are minor, but overall, the detective plot is really not working out. It doesn't really make sense that this discotheque is the center of everything and that the owner didn't know of anything. Of course, then soon after, the partner of the detective passes out, of course, the owner of the discotheque gets laid by the detective, right? Again, it's like, hey, fuck it. And we see these men feet in a close-up on the day after while they're smoking cigarettes. I'm sorry, guys. This is maybe just me, but two naked men are smoking cigarette, and then I see close-ups and I see, man feet in the close-up, and then it's like, what is this? What am I watching here? Come on. It's like, what are you trying to tell me? Yeah, this is totally normal and totally sexual and totally attractive. It's not. It's a foot of a man, hairy with his nails. It's like, I don't want to see this in a close-up at night while I'm getting entertained. Make it make sense. And we had like a couple of minutes where we always see this foot playing around. It's like, what is this? Like, seriously. But besides that everything revolves around this discotheque, and that there is this one tape that of course is missing of the CCTV recording installment that this discotheque has, of course also in the back alley, and then of course that tape that is missing all of a sudden, kind of turns up because he kind of, he beats the shit out of his, his assistant that is suspected to be part of the sex trafficking ring that he installed without him noticing. Right? Whether you are a complete moron, a stupid idiot, because I can tell you, I ran a restaurant with my mom for 16 years. You know everything as an owner that happens in your small restaurant. You know everything. Otherwise, you're not the owner. Otherwise, they will take it away from you. So to believe that this kid whose agenda is full of perverts who have done all illegal things, all in this place, and all of these things that are noted in this very important agenda and that are on these super, kind of secret VHS tapes, right, of the CCTV circuit, that all this stuff just happened without him noticing, right? He is just the good gay, once bad gay, but not so bad gay anymore, that is running the club. Wow, that was just absolutely, the curves and turns here are just amazing. And so this little kid in the end kind of runs this sex trafficking ring. And by the 5th episode, you feel, okay, we have pedophilia, we have sex trafficking ring, we have substance abuse in all sorts of direction, pervert behavior, but we also have this kid story, the underground, the homeless, AIDS. Then we have the puppeteer, the broken marriage, the wife cheating on him. It's like, guys, this is enough material for 2 seasons, not for a mini I'm almost pregnant mini series. It's just too much. It felt like, yeah, let's hit this string, let's hit this string, let's hit this string, let's check out this box, this one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and it was just noise. There was no melody anymore. The whole movie, the whole series by the 5th by the time it hit the 5th episode, it was gone already. You were just looking for a decent end. You were just looking for a decent ending, somehow, something that somehow could make sense. And I'm not exaggerating. It was just incredibly messed up, full of plot holes, completely unbelievable. Like, the bad guys are completely unbelievable and unconvincing, and the way that this whole, the whole affair was handled is absolutely ludicrous, right? The police then, of course, comes too late, and then they are kind of, setting up the usual, hey, you wait with the money at a certain point where then the exchange is going to happen. At the same time, of course, information was leaked out, and so the bad guy then, retrieves from his original plan of giving his kid, and then the white lady wants to sell him to the perverts, but they all fall, they both slip on the stairs going up because there was the raid. And hey, I think that was it. I think, no, I almost forgot something. That was hilarious. So at a certain point, Benedict Cumberbatch picks himself up, right, from all the darkness. He picks himself up, and finally he gets a little hint by his wife that tells him, hey, I went downstairs to our, how can we say, is it the handyman, or the receptionist of the building, or the janitor of the building, yeah, something like that, the condominium overseer, right, who was in the beginning also suspected to be somehow also kind of connected to the crime store, because he had this there was this trial that went to record where he was suspected of abusive sexual behavior towards minors, but then it turned out to be a false statement, and so he was kind of released of that suspicion. And then they found, and one of the reasons they suspected him, because in his basement there was this drawing from the kid on his wall, and they asked him, like, why is my kid coming down into your basement and drawing stuff there? It's like, because he feels safe here. And it's like, okay. And so Benedict Cumberbatch has finally his epiphany, goes down there when his wife tells him, hey, he left a drawing on this wall, at the janitor's basement, So he goes down there and he recognizes this is a map. Ding dong. Wow, what a genius you must be. Okay. After everybody looked at this drawing that is clearly a map, right? Even the police took pictures. No, his father recognizes it. All right. Okay. So what? So he kind of travels to the city by checking out all the drawings and all the details from his son's map, right? He kind of copied it, which also doesn't really work. He could have used Polaroid pictures, but whatever. Man, there are so many plot holes in this miniseries. But nonetheless, he finally gets down. Guys, this is immaculate stuff. You can't make this shit up, for real. So he finally finds the courage. He fights back his monster, his bad conscience, right? He gets fired also from his job because, of course, he's always an alcoholic, and he's invented this new puppet that then gets adopted. But then, of course, they kick him out, and his former Albert Flogler, I think his name is. He's a great actor. He played also in The Offer, Francis Ford Coppola, and he played also in Fantastic Beasts or Fantastic Creatures and Beasts and Where to Find Them in the first installment. He played the Jewish baker. He's a great actor. I really like him. It wasn't his best work. He's kind of relying on his stuff a little bit too much, in my opinion, but otherwise I really like him. And so his partner in crime is Ride or Die, basically betrays Benedict Cumberbatch. So he has this breakdown. He loses his job, and then he goes for goes all over town. He crosses all over town to kind of find his son according to the map that he drew on the wall of the, in the basement of the janitor. And he finds the access to the sewer system and where this tunnel system where all the homeless lives. He is down there where his son basically is, right? Just a couple of meters away from him. And then once he gets there, what does he do? He smokes crack. That was incredible. So he's in fever. He's running all over town. He's almost there finding his son. There could have been a happy end, right? And once he gets down there, he has this, of course, negative talk again with his shadow self. And yeah, he gets convinced that he's a toxic asshole, and then he smokes crack instead of continuing looking for his son. Wow, I was laughing so hard. And yeah, but of course, in the end, the kid escapes from the white evil lady. She falls into the sewer system. She drowns. He doesn't. Never explain how he got up there. Benedict Cumberbatch then wakes up, fights his demons till they die. He really kind of ambushes his puppet. Of course, he's just fighting like in Fight Club against this, invisible enemy. Then gets to the surface and kind of breaks into the studio, steals the costume that he co-created for the Good Day Sunshine show, and goes to the park where there's a homeless demonstration protest where he knows media is there. And there he puts on the costume and talks to his kid that, of course, coincidentally just walks by like a diner, like a breakfast stop, and has a French toast because they always loved French toast. Oh my God, this French toast thing in the end was also so hilarious. And then he sees his dad without any surprise, also not very well acted, I have to say. He sees his dad on the TV wearing this costume, telling him to come back home. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, why not? And it's like, without any, hesitation, surprise, any discovery played. It's like, what does Strasberg always say? What are the three things that are the most difficult for us actors to play and also the most difficult to achieve in the audience? Make them laugh, make them blush, make them believe that you're discovering something. Right? So these are the three principles of what it's just like, yeah, of course, there is no discovery, there's no surprise, there's no blushing, nothing. So yes, his son listens to what his father says, and then let's go home. And this is where they want to meet. And then they meet, they hug each other. It's also very unceremonial. The wife that cheated here again, you always feel like, oh, maybe there's a happy end. Maybe the family is coming together. Maybe this is the redemption. Maybe they can heal through this process. Of course not. Benedict Cumberbatch, in the end, after having saved all assets, after have done everything for his kid, after having risked his life, and contrary to everyone else, after having done basically everything, right? He goes to his wife and says, I understand why you leave me. I'm a toxic male. I'm a toxic man, or something like that. Ding dong. That was my second most hilarious moment. They killed Benedict Cumberbatch's character in the end. By not admitting the resolution of the character, the redemption, you're basically, negating him, the very existence. Like, okay, so there is no character arc anymore. There's no resolution. There's no redemption. There is no hero's journey. There's no coming back. So he leaves. His mother then happily lives with Sebastian, the food truck owner, where we don't know where he has got the money from and why he never saw his, something out of this crime. And then it's all good. Sebastian now lives with the mother, and this kid is getting raised by this foreigner, this guy who runs the food truck, has nothing to do with, he helped the mother kind of give out flyers once, the missing flyers, okay, but otherwise didn't help at all. And so the father then stays away, and then he has a final conversation with his very, very severe but very wealthy father that helped him a little bit with paying the ransom, but then he didn't accept his money because his father is like, it's very conservative, very, very influential industrial politic, not really explained in the movie in New York. And so in the end, they talk about French toast. No redemption there as well. And then, of course, the mother of Marlon La Rochelle, of the kid that was actually murdered because the public prosecutor got got taped on the CCTV. And here's the thing, the whole premise of the movie, the whole murder mystery case is resolved by CCTV. Okay, nothing sensational if you just for the if you listen to it right. But in the end, if you really think about the CCTV that finally resolved the case was placed in the back alley. Now, the back alley where you pick up the trash. Now, in the early 80s, you could have been happy if there was CCTV. I mean, it wasn't completely new, but early 80s, 81, 82, 83, like having CCTV, having VHS and kind of recording all that, it wasn't like, it was expensive. And so a club, of course they had their CCTV for the club maybe, but the footage is like, I don't know how many different camera angles from this back alley, and they have all the crime perfectly taped on this VHS. How comfortable, right? And I really doubt that in the early 80s, you could find so many video cameras in back alleys of discotheques in New York that, taped, all these things from so many different angles. It's just a little bit far out there. So the whole premise of the resolution of the murder mystery is very thin, to say the best, very bad, to say the worst. It doesn't really, it's like, oh yeah. Like nowadays, you can believe that there are many, many cameras all over the place and that you can somehow kind of puzzle together how people are moving through a neighborhood. Okay. But, you have like, I don't know how many different cameras in this back alley, almost more than in the club itself. And again, back alleys, like, these service alleys in New York, you know exactly how they look, right? You have electricity, you have all the dumpster cans, all the bins. It's just, usually if you put a camera up there, it's like they break the camera in 12 minutes, right? So alone to have multiple cameras there is absolutely an investment that no freaking club owner. And besides that, technically, if it's a service alley, it belongs to the city of New York. So the CCTV footage should have been in the police department records and not in the club, in the discotheque, VHS archives. It doesn't really make sense that it's part of the club, that this footage was recorded by the discotheque, because again, it's a service alley. It's not something that officially belongs to the place, to the venue. And I don't think that a club owner would spend not even a dime more than he has to, right? In order to run his facility in his venue, especially if you have a dark past, then you would make sure that you have some spots and corners that are blind to the eye, and that you can still do your business, even though you promised and swear that now you're a better man. That of course doesn't prevent you from taking and dealing cocaine in your discotheque. So in the end, a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, huge plot holes, a lot of strings that weren't pulled, a lot of puppets that missed the puppeteer. Poor Benedict Cumberbatch, I can say. He gives a pretty good performance, but you feel that he has to fight a lot for the cohesiveness of the character that at a certain point, of course, loses its credibility. And in the end, also the sentence that I'm the toxic guy after have done anything to get his son back, and there is basically no redemption. And then the kid at the end in the show kind of, a couple of months later, he's part of the audience, and then he puts on Edgar's costume, the monster that kind of brought them, reunited them. And they have this little uninspired talk where the kid is trying to imitate the voice. Again, not well acted, I have to say. The kid has a great face. And I was really, I don't know, he had this 80s face. I was thinking of Goonies, of E.T. I was looking into this kid's face, and I was really expecting a great performance. My expectations were probably too high. It wasn't a good performance at all, I would say. He really lacked a lot of things. I get it. He was confused throughout the movie because some of the plot lines don't make any sense. Some of the strings don't really connect. But, there's still a little bit, there's still some room missing. And I'm saying this to a young colleague because there's definitely perspective, there's definitely talent, but the skills need to be honed. And I feel like there's too much superficiality in some of the scenes. When you have so little scenes, you have to kind of, give your best shot in everything that you do. I felt like it was a bit short. In the end, Benedict tried to cover on all ends, and of course, he kind of lost himself a little bit in the process. It's incredible and admirable that he tried to kind of being the only one who really stands in for the craft, who stands in for a hero's journey, and try to kind of, close the narration arch, at least for himself, because that's what he really tried to do. But he just partially could accomplish it because nobody was playing along with him, unfortunately, right? The bad guys, the antagonists were not strong enough. The detective plot was too confused and too convoluted. Gaby Hoffmann was not really giving him anything, and was also not, playing along as a wife, not really having comprehension. It was all over already when the movie started. So again, that wasn't also a very wise choice, screenplay wise. And so therefore we have to say, if this would be from 1 to 10, to me, this is a 5 in terms of, what I just saw. It's a solid 5.5 because of Benedict Cumberbatch and some other things, but not even a 6, in my opinion. It really lacked too much in the end, even though in the beginning I was pretty stoked, but I got so disappointed by the end. And they kind of, Slade betrayed the characters, the hero's journey, and everything else. And in the end, it was all the white man's fault. Even though he repairs and fixes everything, he still doesn't get his reception, and the family lives on without him. It's just a cheap tale in the end, unfortunately. A good premise, strong premise, but a very weak outcome, unfortunately. So I guess that was it for today's Open Class Doodle. We have a lot to learn here. There's always something constructive, something beautiful that we can extract. And even in bad entertainment, there's hope for better entertainment, for good entertainment. And so we should take it as a premise of that. Watch Eric on Netflix. Take your own notes. Make up your own mind. Get to your own conclusions. Write me back. Like and subscribe. Hit me also up on Twitter. Hit me up on Saturday Night Hypnosis. Every Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think we're hitting episode 95. We started 95 weeks ago. This year, we're going to hit 100 episodes. I'm so stoked about our development. Check out all the other channels from all the panel members, from Atreus to even Ryan Roger Ethe, right? Words of Paradise, Hypnotic, of course, and Dragon Slayer commentaries, and Good from Diabolical Souls, and all the other greats, and all the other Will of the Fans, of course, White's Metal. Check out the others. Subscribe to their channels. You will definitely see me on Saturday, and then of course next Monday with an Open Class Doodle at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard, and next Tuesday with 3 Sages and a Time Machine, again 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in the meanwhile, I wish you just the best. Have so much success. Foster your creativity. Believe in your product, but be open also to all the corrections, to all the implementations. And if you need some help, come over to readytoperform.com. Whether that's your portfolio, your self-tip, your next big upcoming audition that you want to get audited or that you want to work on, definitely hit me up with a direct message. We also have 30 minutes free trial discovery sessions that I can offer. If you want first to test a little bit what my method is all about, I'm all in for that. I want to discover you as well. And if we're a good match for each other, let's start a new creative adventure. See you next time, guys. Thank you so much for coming by also to the chat. Like always, you guys been awesome and amazing. And just grow, just share, just proliferate, let's blow up all together and have fun in the process. See you next time. Now you're ready to perform. No, really, you are ready to perform.